All right, and all right, okay, you are okay.
Good to go?
Yep. Yes.
Are you ready? Okay. Good evening, council. I want to call to order the February 14th, 2022 Harpers Ferry County Council meeting. All members of the council are present, and we have Melissa and Debbie joining us this evening. Christian, would you do the reading, please?
Yes, until further notice, the Corporation of Harpers Ferry governing a deliberative body will hold meetings and or hearings virtually via Zoom webinar, which provides for public participation during a public comment period when applicable and when posted on the agenda. Alternatively, the public may watch meetings by YouTube video or listen by telephone. These options comply with the Open Government Meeting Act.
Thank you, Christian. Any additions, deletions to this evening's agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I have a motion from Chris. I have a second on the motion. I have a second from Storm. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 7-0, thank you. Public comment, I believe we have Mr. David Simmons online.
I don't see him in there. I did send him an invitation.
So we got his email.
Yeah. But yeah, he's not listed as an attendee. We've got Chief Engineer Chris Dyer. He's not on there.
Okay. All right. All right, let's just move on the agenda. Mayor's announcements, I have none. Approval of minutes, we got the regular meeting minutes from January 10. Chris?
I had one correction. I think I'm right on this, that on 4C number 4, where it says Christian Petrikunas gave that report. I believe that was me. Yes,
Yeah.
it's 4C4.
10th of January.
Yes.
Any other additions, deletions on the January 10? Okay, I have a motion on the floor to approve that.
Motion to approve the January 10
As amended.
minutes.
Okay, and we have a second on the motion. We have a second from Jim. Any discussion on the motion to approve as amended? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion? Thank you. The next one would be, Kevin, was it nice? 11/29, November 29, 2021. Any additions, deletions to the minutes? Motion. I have a motion from Chris to approve the minutes, so I have a second on the motion. I have a second from Jim. Any discussion on the motion to approve November 29? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to approve? Thank you. January 27. January 27. This was a special council meeting. Any additions, deletions on the minutes? Entertain a motion. I have a motion from Chris, second on the motion. I have a second from Storm. Discussion on the motion to approve January 27. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve? Thank you. Treasurer's report review. Debbie, you've got the next.
Good evening, council and mayor. While I read it. Okay. Okay, there you go. On this, the financials, okay, I'm just gonna read this right there. I'm gonna read this. The financial reports you have this evening are for the end of December 2021, halfway into fiscal 22. On general fund, with removal of the carry forward amount of $1,094,000, the budgeted income becomes $975,257. Therefore, the income we've received as of the end of December is $585,248. This represents 60% of the budget income for the year. And that brings us comfortably over half of our income. Property tax receipts are always heavier at the beginning of the fiscal year, so just keep that in mind. But receipts for the quarterly taxes from October through December are mostly received in January. And you'll see the impact of that later on our half-year numbers when we review the revision proposal that's coming forward for fiscal 22 later in the meeting. With expenses, when the carry forward balance is removed, our operating expenses are approximately 45% of our budgeted for the year. In the water budget, these financials do not reflect the water budget revision that was made last month. That will occur in next month's financials that you review. These financials still reflect the purchase and installation of the early warning detection system, but not the reimbursement for which we are still awaiting. And also in the income area, we don't have listed there because we haven't transferred it in order to use it, the 35,000 that we're planning on bringing in from soft cost reimbursement from the original loan to help us with sludge removal. So when we add in those two items that we're missing that we are anticipating getting, which would be the 35,000 and the 26,500 from the state, that brings our income to 47.4% of the budgeted for the year, and our expenses are at 38.9. So, any questions that I can help you with on any of that? There you go.
I move to approve the December 2021 financial reports as submitted.
Second it.
Any discussion on the motion to approve? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
And the next item is that you should see this sort of a draft of the purchasing threshold guidelines, which is being updated a bit. The items in red are changes. This has been reviewed by Budget Finance, who really recommended it forward at our last meeting. Any questions on the changes to that? This is just basically kind of working with this for a month or two and then processing some of the things from the police department that I hadn't been processing that I am now, just overcoming some hiccups that we encountered. Any questions?
Do we need to approve this?
Yes.
Yes, I move to approve this revised fiscal year 2022 purchasing threshold guidelines effective with today's date.
Second on the motion. Second, Chris. Any discussion on the motion to approve the draft on purchasing threshold guidelines? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion?
And the next item is the list of checks over the purchasing threshold that come for approval. So this is the format that I'm suggesting that we use going forward. I'll give you a list with the check number that's going to be here in the stack along with the vendor, the invoice number, what the item is for in a very general sense, and the amount of, it's not the total amount of the checks, but it's the amount of the invoices that were covered. And so keep in mind that these are things that are, they may not be the full threshold amount of the item, but it might be something that would have pushed over the threshold. So if you had plant chemicals at 2,000 for the month, and this was going to make it 2,500, well, then that 500 is what's sitting on there. So, yes.
And not having these laid out in the agenda is not a problem.
Okay, good. Thank you. I think we do. It said something about us. So, yeah, so this is, I recommend this, because it looks like we may have a staff from time to time. It's just going to be more efficient. Okay.
Do we need to approve this?
Yes.
I move to, I'm sorry, Deb, how would you characterize?
I would say just approve the list as presented of invoices and purchases over purchasing threshold for payment.
I assume
But he wants it.
Move to
He needs the motion.
move to approve the list as checks over the purchasing threshold for approval.
I move to approve the list of checks that are over the purchasing threshold as submitted.
All right, second from Chris. Any discussion on the motion to approve check over the purchasing threshold? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
I'm just checking to see if So we bring the sheet in. I'm gonna bring the sheet in.
Chief, I'm just letting you know that you're muted, but you're not on the meeting.
Good evening, council. I want to give the report for the month of January 2022. We had 2 accidents, no call-outs, 7 assists, 31 citations, and 86 incidents for the month. As I continue to meet with the mayor and we're moving forward, it sure is a pleasure. Discussed some of my concerns with him and trying to do some things, and we're working together and trying to continue to move the department forward. I would also like to add, give a little report with the snow removal. I am asking for a special committee to be put together of a couple council members and myself so we can address the upcoming year, which would be next winter, to put a committee together to better suit what we're wanting to have done in the town and to address some concerns that I've noticed that would probably make things better for us in operations with snow removal. I've also addressed that with the mayor, and he thought it would be a good idea for a special committee to be put together. Any concerns or anything you would like to address with me as well?
Chris?
Chief, I have a question. Had a question on your report about the assist other departments. How many of those were in Bolivar?
I don't break them down like that. It could be in Bolivar, it could be out on 340. But if that's something you would like for me to start to do, I'll more than gladly start to have that breakdown put down in the report as well.
I think that would be helpful. Yes, thank you.
Any other questions for the chief? Okay, thank you, chief.
Thank you.
And then, that's good. Actually, go over to more. Click on more. Yep, and say remove permission to talk, top one. There you go. Good, okay. So the next person will be Kevin. He gets-
Not yet.
Kevin is not for us. No, Kevin is not here either, so that's.
Is he coming?
He is not in.
Okay, you have the OCO's report. Is there any information you want me to relay to Kevin?
Yes.
Question do you have, Christian?
The name on this application is misspelled. It's the residence, P-E-W-E-T-T, not L-L, if that's here. That's incorrect. Also, this fence has now been installed in January. And I believe they're still waiting for the plat information for the file.
That's correct.
So I have
What was your first correction? I didn't get the
the
first.
name, Daniel, it's not Coel, it's
Okay, double T.
double T,
Okay.
Hewitt.
Hewitt.
I just want to make sure we have that correct.
Okay. Thanks, Christian. Budget and finance, Christian.
Okay. Cut me off, sorry here. Hang on, let me get you going here. Okay, let's see. This one is the bid we're working on for the post-sludge removal of the sediment at the sedimentation tank. This is removal, transport, and disposal at the water plant. And I'm not sure where we're at exactly, so.
Yeah, Deb, financial officer. So I remember in budget and finance, we left it as there was too much information we needed in order for budget and finance to recommend it at that point.
Right, we're still revising a little bit, and so what we were gonna suggest is to postpone it now. We're gonna finish it up this week. We'll send it for legal review. So we felt that might be more appropriate than coming here first. So we will probably need a special meeting before the end of the month to get your approval for it, but then we'll get it out to it.
We do need to remove this sludge from that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're in good time.
And they are not major things,
Right.
but we just need to dot our i's and cross our t's.
Okay, second item is discussion and action regarding matching grant funding for the Armory Trail, Armory Canal Trail or Potomac Street Extended. So right now, make sure I'm getting at it. Sync. That's the other one. So hang on, I'm just getting my paper straight. We'll see two. There it is. So Budget and Finance meeting met last week and recommended that we proceed. So I move to approve payment by check up to $50,000 from line item 977 Streets and Transportation as included in the fiscal year 2022 budget revision number 2.
That you will be approving.
Later in the meeting.
Yeah.
Say that one more time. What do you, because I've got some other information. I want to hear what you're.
We moved to assign $50,000 to provide matching funds for the Armory Canal Trail or Potomac Street Extended Project. Funds will be coming from line item 977, which is Streets and Transportation, as included in the fiscal year 2022 budget revision number 2.
Okay, do I have a second on the motion?
Second.
Chris, okay. This was the item, one of the two items that we were getting back to DOH in April based on added B&O that we are hoping and expecting. So are you telling this body that we do not need to anticipate additional monies coming in on the B&O? That's what you're saying, correct?
Correct.
Essentially, when we get to the budget revision that we're going to talk about in just a few minutes, you will realize that we will have enough room where we are now to take care of this without that additional expected coming in
Primarily on the strength of revenue.
on the strength of our revenues that we've realized.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're not posing us an issue here between now and April by making this decision now
So
when it's not really necessary because DOH, we have until April to get back to DOH.
you could revise it, you postpone it until April if you want to, or we honestly probably should have had the revision in the order of this meeting. Having the revision first might have been helpful so that you could understand a little more clearly. So you could also do it pending the approval of that revision.
Budget and Finance looked through the numbers. The revision is very positive, very strong. We've got some much better numbers.
But I do agree, it should be pending the revision, which is the next item, which would mean we would need to vote this down. And that,
Or we can just skip right
Oh,
to
or
the revision.
Kevin, could be an amendment to the motion.
I'm just making a comment. Okay, I'm not trying to dictate one way or the other. I'm just reflecting back to what the conversation was with DOH, that we did not have to get to them until April. They gave us mid-April or whatever it was. And so in good faith, I mean, if you all are comfortable and you looked at this, then fine, we'll go forward if that's the direction. But I just want you to know that I'm not trying to complicate this. I'm just bringing up what we had discussed previously and what I had discussed with DOH.
Yes. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
If I can make a comment, because I kind of instigated this discussion, I did have the concern that we would be ready to cut the check in April. And so I was hoping to get all of the budgeting, the revisions necessary done.
Right.
So that was my idea in pushing this.
Well,
And we asked,
Discussion now.
and you'll hear the output from budget revision 2, but we did spend a lot of time. We asked a lot of questions. And that's why, if we want to really tighten it, we can add the language since this council has not yet heard that information. But yeah, I'm very confident because I had very steep concerns about writing checks against money we do not have.
and the other thing is that just because you're approving the money to come from that line item with this revision doesn't mean you have to cut the check tomorrow. You can wait until April to send the check. It just means that you're including it in the revision.
We
the other-
are waiting till April, correct? We are gonna wait till April to cut the check, right?
We don't have to.
Well, we can, or we don't have to, whatever you're comfortable with as a body. She said, we are waiting until April. And I said, well, that wasn't it's not what I heard, but that is your option and you can do that.
And the motion was to assign the funds. So it didn't specify when.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have another question about it because I know we had discussed possibly the money, at least some of the money for that coming out of hotel motel funds. Is that
Yeah,
decided against?
that was a thought that we had, but it is not going to be a town park. And so, and it's not a park. And so, and it's not a park that we would have control over maintaining really. And so it doesn't qualify for that.
Recall though that hotel motel tax can also be used for historical preservation, which I think a good argument could be made for that trail, and also beautification. So I think there's some flexibility there, and if it's not necessary, the point may be moot.
That's the thing is that you'll hear about it, but because of the strength of the revenues, it's not necessary, particularly with things that are basically one-time expenses.
Okay.
So we're not taking on, a permanent, yes, there will be expenses from it, but that it does add up without needing to go there.
As long as it's not running us short in other areas, so it sounds
We
good.
wouldn't make that recommendation.
All right, before I call for the vote, I just have one other question. Chris, you may know the answer to this. With the High Street project, I received a letter from the Commissioner of Highways to sign and commit the $80,000 for. Do we have such a letter from the flat and this? Was there a document? I don't remember seeing
No,
one.
I haven't seen
I
the
haven't seen
document.
it.
No.
No, and it was my understanding, I think we both remember this the same way, that after our January meeting with DOH, that they had said, first off, that it probably wouldn't need to be $80,000
50, you mean? No, for yours.
for the High Street.
Okay.
Yeah, High Street we're on, or
No, we're still on the trail.
oh, okay, no, I'm sorry, I'm confusing that.
My question is there a document from DOH or from the flat that says you need to sign here and give us a check? I don't see one, Debbie.
No,
Do
we
you?
do not have that at this time.
Okay.
No.
Chris, do you have a contact that you could just pose that question to them? Are we just supposed to write a check and give it to the first person that walks through the door?
And they might be waiting until April
Okay.
because
Which is fine.
of the meeting.
Yeah,
And that's why assigning it now, so that as things fall.
So Chris will follow. If you contact the gentleman you and I talked to.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Any other discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you.
Okay. Next item, discussion and action regarding matching grant funding for the High Street project. Go ahead, Storm.
All right, I move to assign up to $80,000 from 977 Streets and Transportation to provide matching funds for the High Street improvement project, and that the town's High Street addendum be submitted to the appropriate authorities to represent the town's expectations for the project.
Pending
pending
budget revision two,
budget revision 2,
FY 22.
fiscal year 22.
Very good.
All right, Storm, read it one more time.
I didn't say anything.
And I'm writing this extra bit.
He's adding the extra bit.
I move to assign up to $80,000 from 977 Streets and Transportation to provide matching funds for the High Street Improvement Project, and that the town's High Street addendum be submitted to the appropriate authorities to represent the town's expectations for the project, pending budget revision for fiscal year 2022.
A second on the motion. For a second from Christian. The same discussion I have with this one as I had with the other one, okay, on the April. And you are including and requesting, have you all had a chance to look at? Laurel sent me a kinder and gentler sentence for paragraph, whatever it was, Laurel. I will incorporate that. If you haven't had a chance to read this, this is what I plan to add to go to DOH in Charleston, because the original concept that's on my desk in there to sign does not include any of this. It basically is fixing the gutter, doing something with the sidewalk a little bit if they can, and spruce things up. It does not include any of the things that we as a body approved in October, I believe, and that's what I've got here. So I ask you to one more time, between now and this week sometime, take a look at this. Laurel, I appreciate your comment on that, well taken. And we'll do the same thing with this that we'll be doing with the previous one, the Army Canal.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll emphasize that in particular, rebuilding the retaining wall has to happen. The whole thing is failing because of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing right there. That's the big huge. Okay, so y'all got that, okay? I appreciate that. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Thank you. That's a big, two giant steps
That's
forward.
true.
Guys.
We are so fortunate to have a good.
Thank you for the work on that.
Well, thanks to everybody, really.
Yeah.
Okay, Christian, I think you got this report.
Yep, got number 4, discussion action on a $20,000 study grant from the West Virginia DEP's tributary team for a stormwater concept plan, and Storm is going to discuss a bit about it.
Okay, Storm?
Yeah, actually, I have exciting news on this, in that our request for funding from WVDEP for Stormwater General Concept Plan was submitted by Region 9 on behalf of both Harpers Ferry and Bolivar, and that they approved the funding, with each town pledging to provide as much as $5,000 of the matching funds, or a total of $10,000 if the work ends up costing $20,000, which is the high-end estimate. The work will be administered by Region 9 in collaboration with both the towns of Harpers Ferry and Bolivar. So we will be working with them to make sure that we get what we need, and they will coordinate all the payments. Otherwise, it would have been a process of back and forth if we had been managing it ourselves. And there's a chance that we can complete this general study in time to apply for the next round, which is that engineering plan, where it's the actual engineering plans where we can start getting bids to do work and getting grants for those, with the Chesapeake Bay Trust in April. So it's exciting, and also that thank you to Region 9 for this, and for Mayor Vaughn, that you were critical in coordinating with Bolivar, and I think it's a great opportunity and a real win for both towns.
I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, there's your name, yeah. So this,
Do we need to prove anything?
no, we can move on. So,
Oh,
Where
sorry.
did you do?
we do. I thought we approved it in last meeting.
Oh, did you? Okay.
We
My
up to
mistake.
$10,000.
Yeah. up
And
to
now we're
10.
gonna be around
Okay,
5.
that's fine. I forgot.
I have a related thing that came up as part of this, with stormwater, which is safe water Harpers Ferry. So in connection with the stormwater work with Region 9, I've now been contacted by Kristen Bysom of the West Virginia Conservation Agency and Jenna Dodson, who's at West Virginia Rivers Coalition. They want to reactivate the Safe Waters for Harpers Ferry program, which looks to protect the entire Elks Run watershed. And there's a grant for that. And that this is a group that used to be quite active, has gone inactive, and they're looking to revive it. And they've reached out, they're looking for a liaison for Harpers Ferry. And they mentioned Barbara Humes had been part of this group previously. So obviously no action right now, but certainly if we can find someone who can be this liaison, since of course Elks Run's water is what is our water, and it would certainly behoove us to be part of this process to try to protect that watershed.
I will say that the Elk Run Study Group, Kevin and I both are familiar with that. That dates way back to Jim Adams when he was mayor. And I will say publicly that Barbara Humes did a phenomenal job on that for years and years and years. Very totally committed to that. And I think a lot of the reason that we are where we are with the water plant is a result of Barbara's work and her steadfast dedication to Harpers Ferry on the Elk Run Study Group. So Barbara, if you're listening, thank you very much. Okay, item number 5.
Discussion and action regarding the fiscal year 2022 budget revision 2 general fund.
Would it be better for you, and do you mind if I sit here for the next couple items?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also wanted to let you know that Dave Simmons has joined online, so when you're ready. we can
Okay.
listen for you. All right, so I'm just going to give you a review of highlights of this budget revision that Budget and Finance has taken a look at and is recommending. If you want to follow along on this sheet, I'm going to refer to columns, colors, and numbers along the side for accounts. Sorry, that didn't come in color, did it? Okay. All right, so this is a proposal for revision 2 for fiscal 22 general fund. I'll summarize the changes from the original budget and finance has reviewed this, as has consolidate. Okay, for the income area, the light pink column reflects actual income numbers as of the end of January. This is important as we receive much of our quarterly tax payments in January. So this gives us more accurate half-year measurement. And when we include the January income numbers that we have, we will have realized 75% of the budgeted income that we thought we would have for the whole year as of the end of January. We're only halfway through the year. In the income area, we examined what was received April through June 2021. So in order to project what we might get for the rest of this year, we said let's look at April through June 2021, especially in these tax areas, to budget we're going to do for the rest of the year. And so we added those amounts on roughly to give what we're proposing in the dark pink area. So with adjustments, therefore, in B&O, hotel, motel, municipal tax fines, and parking meter revenue, we've increased the income to our budget by $185,500 for the whole year. And this only takes into consideration what we realized last year, not any newly anticipated revenue at all for this year.
So it doesn't even include any construction tax
That
revenue.
we may receive that we did not receive
Does
last
not
year.
include
Does
that.
not include it.
Not at all, okay? Now, in the expense area, I'm going to jump around a bit to discuss category by category. The expense item number is on the left-hand column over here. Line 415, Office of Clerk, reflects changes with respect to that position being permanently filled now and not shared with the office coordinator. Line 440 City Hall has increased due to allow for additional accrued leave that will be proposed in the COVID-19 policy later in the meeting, along with pulling salaries back from the town clerk to the office coordinator. The other larger adjustment in that area is utilities, which is a result of the additional larger refuse container and the additional weekly pickups for refuse that we now need during the high tourist season, since the National Park Service does not have any waste receptacles. Line 700 Police Department shows an increase due to the corresponding portion of fines, fees, and court costs required to be paid to the state that are associated with the increase that we made in the revenue. So they're doing better in the revenue, so we have to increase what we give to the state. That's a proportional number. And it allows for the purchase of their upgraded computers, as well as some additional auto maintenance for the older vehicles and some payroll adjustments for the new full-time officer that is already in place. Line 750 Street Department shows a decrease that is largely due to benefit selection by personnel in this department for the fiscal year, and just has a small decrease to capital outlay. Line 751 Streets is street lights, is increased to allow for the purchase of street light bulb fixtures that we are now required to make. Line 753 Snow removal makes accommodation for 1 to 2 more snowstorms.
Just in case.
And we're only just about halfway through what we budgeted anyway, so. Line 901 and 906 visitor bureau and arts and humanities directly reflects the increases that were made to the hotel motel income tax increase that was up on the revenue side. So what we bring in up there, we have to exactly pull out down below. Public safety 976 provides for the payoff for the current cruiser and purchase of the cruiser on order. 977 streets and transportation includes some items that we've been considering in this meeting, and approximately $25,000 to complete the Washington Street Stormwater Project. Some engineering costs were in there originally that were planned to remedy the Cambridge Street stormwater issue, which will likely be rolled into the matching grant for the stormwater that you've already approved. And we've also included the matching grant money of $80,000 for High Street and $50,000 for the Armory Canal Trail. Line 975 general government shows a drop that is not unlike those in revenue in revisions 1 and 2 for fiscal 21. Overall, our budget has grown by $185,500, which is about 8%. And we anticipate that with the conservative income projections that we've made and the fact that the increased expenses in streets and transportation and public safety are one-time investments, we should see that bounce back as we move towards fiscal 2023.
And just one note about the revenue increase. We did go line by line with everything, and it is all based on what we believe to be a conservative assumption that the number of visitors that we see will be roughly the same as it was last year for these months. And I'll say this weekend, when we had a 50-degree day and the world came flocking here, it confirmed that, yeah, there's no indication that that the number of people coming to visit Harpers Ferry and spending their money and leaving with memories and leaving us with tax dollars, that is not going to change. But that is the one thing that this rests on.
What about all this stuff?
Well, that is just simply the formal document that goes to the state auditor's office. So it's the conversion of the changes that we've made into their format. And it also gives Kevin the resolution page that he needs to fill out for me so I can send along with
So
this.
we don't need to approve anything.
You have to approve this and you have to go roll call.
Okay. So you want me to go? I'll just do the motion, and then I move to approve the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget revision number 2 as presented.
Second, we have a second from Storm. Any discussion on the motion to approve the 2022 budget revision? Hearing none. Kevin, would you call the roll?
Chris Carter. Aye. Storm Costanza.
Aye.
Laurel Gray.
Aye.
Jim Jenkins.
Aye.
Christian Petrikonis.
Aye.
I vote aye.
Yeah.
There.
Aye.
Aye. Is that it on that one?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So now we're at the ad hoc thing.
I'll take that.
Okay. Before I bring in David, I just want to make one comment real quick. That is, hopefully we have some people listening this evening, I just wanted to um, really reach out and thank the members of the Budget and Finance Committee. Debbie and Laurel, Chris, you were on it, Christian and Storm. People absolutely, probably in this community, have no idea the amount of time that the four of you spend to maintain the financial integrity of Harpers Ferry. I want all of you to know your efforts have not gone unnoticed. Through Christian and Debbie's leadership, I feel so comfortable with the solvency of Harpers Ferry, and it's because you volunteers step forward in other municipalities in Charlestown and Class 3 municipalities. They have paid staff that does this. We do not have an opportunity to do that. And so it's just an incredible amount of time that you all spend on behalf of the town. And I really am very, very thankful to what you do for the town. So on behalf of the members of the town, thanks to the Budget and Finance, you are really making a difference in this town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We want to bring in David at this time. Is that okay?
One comment about, David, I don't know whether his comments are regarding the fence ordinance, but we might ask him if he wants to delay that until we discuss
Until we get to the fence? Is that what you're saying?
to ask him if it is.
If he can hang around till then?
So, tell that he's muted.
David, you're part of the group. But you're, oh, never
Okay.
mind.
Should I turn on my video?
Oh, so you
We'll
accidentally.
make sure it's you. Just kidding.
Okay.
So what you want to do is go.
Be a voice.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
David?
Okay, hi.
David, are your comments on the fence ordinance proposal?
Yep.
Would you be able to hang around a little bit until that until we discuss that whole issue?
Oh, yeah, I thought that's where we were at. So nope, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You want to
So,
David, if you can hang around, we'll come back to you, okay?
We're going to put you back as an attendee and bring you back in.
Right after the water.
Right after an hour, no, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Water.
All right, so let's go to 4D, COVID ad hoc committee.
Do you want me to give the report on that?
Sure.
Deb Kelly and Storm and I worked pretty diligently, I would say, over the past week and a half or so. And we have this draft policy that hopefully you've all had time to review. And I won't go into all the details, but I want to say generally what we are trying to do, and probably coming in very late in the game on it, is to provide strong incentives for staff of Harpers Ferry to be vaccinated, and also to provide some general guidance on other COVID-related issues. So that's where this is. And what the general guidelines are that we are going to give paid leave to staff members. We are proposing this to give paid leave to staff members to get vaccinated or boosted if they need that, and also up to a day of paid sick leave for any reaction that they might have. There's also an incentive that if they can document that they are up to date on vaccinations and boostings, if as eligible, that they will receive 20 hours additional sick or vacation leave. And we do need to discuss, we were proposing that that would be prorated for part-time,
Yeah, we discussed that a little
employees.
bit.
So we may need to discuss that a little bit. There is also we kind of went with the CDC guidelines, present guidelines on quarantine and leave when someone is either tested positive for COVID or if they have been exposed to the virus. We have that policy set.
And notably, and if the CDC's policy changes, we're not fixed to what the policy is now. Because
Yeah.
we don't know what's going to happen with the disease. We're all hoping that this is tailed off and we're done, but we don't know that. And if it does come back, we now have a policy that is going to encourage the best outcomes for individuals and the community.
And as another part of the carrot that we're offering for getting vaccinated and keeping vaccinated, we are offering paid sick leave for the quarantine days, up to 5 days for that, if needed, that would not come out of their accumulated sick or vacation leave.
If they're vaccinated.
If they are vaccinated, yes. And then if someone becomes ill and they're not vaccinated, it's on them to draw out of their sick and vacation leave. If that's depleted, then the payment's on them. We did not address catastrophic incidences if someone ends up in the hospital for 54 days. We think that's going to be considered on an individual basis. The other thing that we talked about and that's included in here, we believe that we really need to come up to game on mask policy for town hall, the water plant, all of the town facilities. And so we are proposing that if anyone is in a Harpers Ferry work interior and they are not working alone away from other people, that they should be masked. And that includes all visitors and those of us here should be setting the example on that.
And with masking, it's the same. If the guidance changes and it's particular to your community, and it's all laid out in the document, but it's not, a fixed, you shall do this all. It's based on the best information available, and that is from the CDC.
I think that's the main point. We are proposing that this policy is effective through the end of June of this year, that around a month earlier than that, we should review it, whether it needs to be extended or revised or anything. And in the meantime, if we see that a revision is needed, that we can enact that. Did I miss anything major?
No, I think that was it. I think the main things were when the policy, how long it was going to go out. And I think we chose June 30 because that's a horizon we can see. If it turns out there's a new variant and it's in need, we can extend it. But we didn't want to just leave it as something that just becomes this zombie policy out there.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'll add is reiterating that it does all fall back on CDC guidelines. So as they change, the policy is allowed to change automatically.
Right.
And also that this policy was modeled by looking at about 4 municipalities in West Virginia in our immediate area and compiling them together for something that fit for us. So it's not something we just dreamed up. I mean, these are things that other municipalities in our area have had in place for some time. We did not get to a legal review, so when you do propose any approval of it, you'll want to include pending legal review. You do need to do that.
I might mention on that, however, that this policy, what we started with was Martinsburg's policy, which our lawyer had reviewed. So we didn't change in major ways from that, but we will feel better if he takes an eye at it.
Yeah.
Are we looking for approval this evening for this?
Yeah, does anyone have any other questions or?
Because I've got some comments on there I want to submit. Kevin?
Yeah, I just have a suggestion as well. At the beginning of the purpose, where it says the COVID-19 virus, including the Omicron and Delta variants, I would just remove the section about Omicron and Delta variants because we don't know what's coming up and they could be even worse than.
What we knew.
Oh, yeah. That was why it was.
What did Kevin?
That's why it was including, but I agree. It's just flat out here.
For some reason, I don't think.
I have a question. So if somebody's gonna get the 2 vaccines and the booster, I don't know if you have enough time, because if they have to do it immediately, they have to jump on.
If they have not, they're not
Nothing.
vaccinated right now, and they go and they get a vaccine,
Right.
and they're fully vaccinated. That's all they can do right now under the vaccine situation. Now, it's their obligation as the need for the second dose and the booster to continue to get those in time. If they don't, and they get sick, then according to the policy, if they can't show that their vaccination is up to date, then the sick time will be on them.
And
As opposed to.
what about the bonus,
Well, you,
time? That was what I was
well,
concerned about.
we're giving that to be, that's a tricky wicket, but the idea is that we want people to get vaccinated.
And we define the term. So fully vaccinated is defined in a way that, just like the policy itself flows with the CDC, you don't have to spell out everything, but it says for you at that moment, if you are considered to be fully vaccinated, because remember that changes too, because it depends on the virus. That if the virus mutates and it turns out you need to be boosted in maybe only 6 months, then that's your time frame to be in compliance. 3 months, that will be it. But it doesn't spell it out in every detail. But in the definition, it does allow for the changes.
My concern is somebody takes one vaccine, that's it, and that's it. And you're gonna give them 20 hours, 16 hours.
That is a risk, but the upside of it is that I think the bigger benefit is, let's say another variant comes out and it's really bad, and if it turns out they say, you know what, it's gonna mow you down if you don't get boosted, if you're not fully up. That at that point, if you're not in compliance, that if you only had the one vaccination and didn't follow up, if you get sick, it's on you. Versus this policy, which says you won't have to use your leave.
What would be your alternative?
My thing is either give them instead of the 20, where you were talking 20 hours for all of it, you break it up. It is 3 shots at this point, 3 vaccines, and there's a potential 4th maybe someday. So I'm just saying somebody's going to do one and they're not going to go any further, and you're obligated. The way this is written, you're obligated to give them 6 or whatever.
So what you're proposing is if someone has received both vaccines and is fully boosted as of today, you would give them the 20 hours. And then if someone only has some of that done, let's say they don't have anything and they go and they get their first shot, maybe you would give them 5 hours. And when they get their second shot, you give them 5 hours. And when they get the booster, you give them the last 10. Is that what you're saying?
That's
Okay.
kind of what I'm saying.
Okay.
The tricky part with that is we don't know what's going to be required in the future. And the big thing is providing an incentive that's meaningful, but that, like the Martinsburg policy, it was actually a lot more hours, but that was designed for when there was no vaccination. And this
And
is,
they're a bigger organization.
and we tried to find a number of hours that would be meaningful enough, but that we're not just creating a pinata here, like we're trying to incentivize health for individuals and for the community.
Well, I want them to get all of them.
Oh, yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I want, but if somebody only takes one, they may just say that's it.
Right.
And,
Well,
and they're not protected,
Well,
not fully.
no.
I don't think they would, I don't believe on this policy that they would get the extra hours until they went through the course.
Well,
Okay, well, that's not how, I don't
If
read
they
it that way.
get one and then they
Kevin
get
has
sick,
this,
it's they're sunk. So it's that's an incentive in itself.
Yeah, that's not how I perceive it.
Yeah, I would think that fully vaccinated couldn't necessarily include the booster at this time, because if somebody gets their first vaccine right now, they can get their second dose in
1 month.
in 1 month, but they can't get a booster for 6 months after that. It's 6 right now.
6. That's why I have a problem with this to June 30th. I couldn't see how they fit it in. Yeah, I like the proration thing. I like your program. I'm not against it. I just don't want
Yeah,
somebody
that's
getting
right.
one shot and thinking I'm getting all this time off.
All right, so what are we gonna do with all the sideboards here? We gotta do something here.
I have a question. Are we anticipating a special meeting next week?
That's just what I was saying, the storm, yeah.
yeah, because it sounds like we are going to need to revisit the definition, and we can consider if there's a way to apportion it, so maybe it's not a lump at once if you're not fully vaccinated. It's not ready for prime time, and I don't feel we can make those adjustments on the fly.
Okay. Who can we give recommended things to look at to?
Direct from the storm.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Yeah.
And we'll do that with this one.
Okay. All right, anything else on that? Everybody satisfied with the direction we're gonna go? If you have any suggestions or concerns, submit them to a Christian or a Storm, and we'll try to get together next week at a special meeting, okay? Okay, now water department, Laurel, you got it?
Oh, yeah, we need to bring Chris in.
Or is Chris doing it?
That's right.
So the waterworks hired a new operator in training, Ryan Slusher, and we're pleased to welcome him. And a note for the public is that for the water and sewer bills that were mailed out on February 1st, the meter reading was estimated using previous usage. Because of the snow and ice on the meters, that made it difficult to read the meters. I know my own bill was very much like the past few months. It was very close to it, and I didn't notice any difference. And that was based on an estimation. Our monthly engineers report for our water infrastructure project. I'll just mention our contractor Alvarez did substantial work on the sediment basin, the raw water intake structure, and in the filter building. And next month, they plan to continue work on those 3 areas. Now, I assume everyone here got a copy of the engineer's report. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will try to find out those answers. Some of the work for our project had been planned for February. It was rescheduled to be done in the late spring. The construction of the new membrane filter will now be done in May, so that all supporting construction projects that sometimes require turning off the electricity, stopping the water processing, etc., can be done ahead of time, that's the reason why it got basically rescheduled to May. It's going to work better that way, because all of the other supporting projects are already finished. And when that happens, we will increase our labor and time to process the water, since our equipment will be at half capacity during that construction. So for that reason, we will be advertising for a part-time temporary class 2 water operator to begin work in either late April or early May. And so this month, the cost of the construction, along with the monthly engineering costs, were reviewed by our engineer, Chris Eckenrode. And the resulting requisition has been submitted to the Corporation of Harpers Ferry, on which we'll be voting shortly. Do you have any questions?
We have to vote on this. Do we have to read this into the record, I believe? So Debbie, could you read it into the record?
Well, this is item E3, resolution number 11 of the town of Harpers Ferry, approving invoices related to construction and other services for the water project and authorizing payment thereof. Whereas the town of Harpers Ferry has reviewed the invoices attached hereto and incorporated herein by reference in relation to the construction of the water project funded by the United States Department of Agriculture, and finds as follows. Number 1, that none of the items for which the payment is proposed to have been requested from another source. Number 2, that each item for which the payment is proposed to be paid is or was necessary in connection with the project and constitutes a cost of the project. Number 3, that each of such costs has been otherwise properly incurred. Number 4, that payment for each of the items proposed is due and owing. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the town council of Harpers Ferry that the payment of the attached invoices as summarized below are hereby authorized and directed. Wayne Dobson and Foreman, $3,641, and Alvarez contractors, $120,866.30 for a total of $124,527.30. Adopted by the town council of Harpers Ferry at a meeting on the 14th of February 2022.
Thank you. A motion to approve resolution number 11.
I move to approve resolution number 11 and payment for pay application number 10 as presented.
We have a second on the motion. We have a second from Christian. Any discussion on the motion to approve resolution number 11? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Thank you. Okay. Is Chris there?
Yes, I am. Okay. Hello, everybody. Okay, the water loss for the month of January was at 38.76%. The reason for it being a little higher, we had to estimate our meter readings for the month of January because our entire staff and I were out for 3 weeks due to COVID. So the accuracy of last month's data may be off. There is no way of knowing until we read the meters this month. I believe we will find our water loss will be back down below 20% because our daily operational hours have dropped in the last few weeks and our tanks are filling up faster than they normally do. We have a new operator in training, Ryan Slusher. He comes with experience in the water industry and is also can operate an excavator. Yes. He's already excelling at tasks he has been given in the short time he has been here. We are utilizing a new schedule change that will hopefully give us more time for the construction crew to work in the plant during the day and allow us to run during the night hours. Because of this new schedule and the demand that the construction is putting on our team, we will be using Ron Smoot to help with some leak repairs when needed. I would also like to add, so I have gotten my vaccinations, and unfortunately, I still ended up with COVID. I did not get my third inoculation due to the fact that my hands went numb, and I was told not to do it at the time. But what I was told from the doctor was, now that I've had COVID, to wait for my booster shot for another 6 months. So I've got my 2, and I have them documented, so I just wanted to add that to the table there, that I don't know how we're going to do this in the future, but just thought I'd bring that up, that I was told to wait for 6 months until I got my next booster shot. That's all. So.
Thank you,
Any
Chris.
questions for Chris?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chris. What was the concern? Ray? All right, Kevin, I think it's yours. And David.
Okay, this, the next item is, ordinance number 2022-01, an ordinance amending part 13 of the code of ordinances to the Harpers Ferry setting requirements, restrictions, and certain exemptions for construction and replacement of fences and retaining walls and setting regulations for temporary construction. This ordinance that you have before you, first draft began in 2016 with the planning commission. It came before the council, I think 3 times, if I remember right, for approval. Each time, there were various concerns that were put forth. So the ordinance was sent back to the planning commission. I went to the BDA once. I think it might have gone to landmarks, I'm not sure. And it went to the review committee for review a few times. This latest version has been reviewed by the town attorney, and he did have a couple of recommendations to the ordinance, and those have been incorporated in the draft that you have before you here. And I believe BZA has some.
I don't know if you heard all that, David, but Kevin just gave an overview of the long history of this. I have shared your one page with the council. And so let me just turn it over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor, and thanks everybody for getting this close to the finish line. Much appreciated, because I know it's a lot of work to do this. So I had 4 things I want to talk about. I know I have 3 minutes, and I'll go through the first 3 pretty quickly. Sounds like the attorney did review it, which is good. I just, in Appendix A, I noted that the word shall was taken out and replaced with may and must in a couple of cases. So I just thought it should be looked at again to make sure that's the way we want it to read. I didn't, like shall has a legal meaning. It's got like a legal imperative to it, and may definitely does not. May is optional. And I think that just make sure that's reviewed again, I think in those sections. Not a big item. And then the permitted fence type section in Appendix B, I noted it's blank. So I don't know if there was a plan to put permitted fence types listed in there, but I didn't see that in the ordinance. And then I thought with permitted fence types, sometimes it's better to put a not fence types that aren't permitted to help somebody put a box around what they're building. So suggest that is a change. And then Appendix B, where we're talking about the temporary construction fencing and what you can put on the fences as far as like a I don't know what it's called, advertising or something like that. I wasn't sure if that was just like the construction company saying this is who I am and my phone number, etc., or because that's covered in another section of the ordinance, 131611. So I thought, I don't know if that got looked at or if you're talking about something else. So if it's something else, like I feel like you got to be careful with that, because that feels open-ended to me. So I would really recommend putting some kind of box around that to some degree, like our sign ordinance. So I think that's missing there. If it's more than a construction company's sign of this is who I am and here's my website, here's my phone number. So and the last part is the most important part for me is building on property lines. I think that needs more robust discussion, because when Bill Lowenbach and I started this a while back, we purposely left, we put in language to build up to but not on, because we were worried that it just creates this legal complexity that you've tried to put in the ordinance, and I think you did a good job, but to me, we are not the town that can document this well yet. I don't know if we'll ever be. And I think we should really think about that before we put that in the ordinance, because I think you want to be rock solid with that documentation. I think you want to be rock solid with the agreement. And I don't think our OCO currently trained can do this well. And I don't think our documentation and record keeping practices are good enough to maintain these things for as long as they need to be maintained. Fences last 20 years. So are we going to maintain this for 20 years? Those things worry me. Like it feels like we're asking for conflict, and I don't think we need to do that. I'm not sure. So that's where I come from. So in general, thanks for doing this. I've been on the BZA for a while, and I really appreciate this getting close to the end line. I don't want to do variances for fences any longer. They aren't that exciting. So those are my 2 cents. If you have any questions about any of it, please feel free to contact me. But again, thanks for getting this close to the end line.
Thanks for your time, David.
Thank you, David.
All right, thanks.
I can address some of those concerns. The first one, go over what the concern was and then address it, right? The first one about the use of the word shall. There's been a lot of discussion about that over the years. Various legislatures around the country, modern legal writing and so forth, tend to move away from use of the word shall because it can be considered ambiguous in a lot of cases. And it's considered archaic in a lot of cases. And so the recommendation is to use other words like must, may, and so forth. And that's why in some of those sections there, the word shall was removed and replaced with must or some other term. So the permitted fence types in Appendix B, that actually came from the planning commission, and there definitely seems to be something missing there. So
Where are you at?
Page 6.
the last page, line 32.
It's on Appendix B.
And usually they're chain link fences. But these are temporary fences, in my opinion.
Yeah, something's obviously missing there.
Boy, are we talking about the construction fences or general? fences?
Construction.
This is construction.
They're usually what they are right now, at the hilltop site right now.
Yeah, but typically
Chain link.
chain link fences, but
It should be listed
it should be listed. Something should be listed there.
or drop the word.
Just drop that for now and maybe look at it again for future revision.
Yeah.
Signs on temporary construction fences, the idea there was the advertisements. Sometimes they're required to put advertisements on fences saying who the construction company is, their contact information and so forth. That was the spirit of that requirement there for allowing them to.
Yeah, usually they'll have several signs of various firms that are working there, subcontractors. There may be things about safety. They usually put a lot of things on those gates.
I can see that you wouldn't, it shouldn't become a billboard, but I actually appreciate if you're at a site where work is going on, not just to know who's doing it, but what are they doing? I think that's a good thing.
I think that it actually may be a state requirement that's even above us.
And I didn't get David's comments until right before this meeting, but do you think that he is correct that that's being addressed in 1316?
I didn't get an opportunity to look at that because I saw this.
I did look at it. It's very prescriptive of what you can put on the fence. And it is basically the name, phone number, basic contact information of the construction site, because it cannot be larger than dimensions.
So from what you saw, since I haven't Yep, to look at it today. Should this be removed here, or you feel it's just complementary to the?
Well, it's contradictory in a way because what's in here is broader. This would allow for signage that said, coming soon coffee shop, like that type of thing, versus something that's strictly Macklemore Construction, phone number, that's all. So I don't know the law, history, and the rest about this. So I don't know if there are legal reasons why it needs to be that prescriptive. My personal opinion is that it's a benefit, but there is a hazard. You don't want it to become just a billboard, but I think the fact that it's a construction fence, you don't have to spell it out. If you're told, okay, you're working on your lot and suddenly there's an ad for the grocery store, it would be within bounds for the OCO to say, sorry, that's not for construction. And it has to be germane to what you are doing. And I feel like that's the line.
Of course, the general spirit of the law is when there are two pieces of law, ordinance, or whatever that address the same issue, the more restricted one is the one that is more enforceable.
Plus, that's a state one here, the one that he's bringing up. Is that more?
I don't know. I only read it when I saw it referred to in David's letter, and I don't know the history behind it, if there's law behind it. In my opinion, if the law holds up, I would think we would actually need to remove that part if we decided that what we wanted to do is in this ordinance that we put together. But again, not knowing that.
The spirit of this was for advertising the construction firm, contact information, and so forth. Those things that are required to be.
Okay. Well, I guess the question is, I think as it's written in the ordinance now, it cannot go beyond that. So that's the difference between saying you are required to do this versus you can do no more than this. So that's the question regarding the other ordinance. And hang on. What was the number on that?
It was
1316.11.
Okay, I'll say.
Okay, anything else for Kevin?
The thing is,
I do have another thing.
1316.11.
1316. Did you say?
1316.11. They don't require a permit. Construction signs may list company, corporation, individual names, communications, such as phone numbers, email addresses, types of work, or expertise offered by the company or individual, and may be placed only on, and it describes where and size. Although as I read this, it doesn't necessarily say that you cannot have other information. It does say construction signs may not exceed 4 feet square in size and are limited to one such sign at each site. So it's fairly restrictive.
I think we need to study it some more. Chris, I think the big issue, you want to lead into the
Number 4.
joint property?
Yep. So the fences on property lines and the ownership of that is a pretty complex issue, of course. The idea of allowing a fence on a property line was so that there aren't two separate fences back to back. You have one fence. And that, again, that came from the planning commission, and there was a lot of discussion about that, as I understand. And some of it was pretty controversial. But the draft that they put forward was to allow fences on property lines, but the property line, of course, has to be surveyed. If the fence is on the property line, then it proposes that there should be joint ownership of the fence between the owners of the two properties on each side of the fence. And they would have to have some kind of legal document to that effect. I think that if we did go forth with the fencing on property lines and the joint ownership, then what we would have to do is require that as an easement on the property deed, so that when the property conveys to someone else, there's a definite record that that fence is jointly owned by both properties.
This has been an issue we talked about a lot, and I certainly shared David's concern about it, that it was, I think that the proposal that as it was written, and our lawyer seemed to agree with this, that it addressed the joint property issue well, but my thought, like David's, was why go there? This is not, there's nothing here that prevents, if we're neighbors, you building your fence 2 inches from the property line and me doing the same thing. So we can still have 2 fences there. It doesn't avoid that, and yet it does bring up this issue that even with all of the legal requirements, I think this is where I'm kind of in line with David and our background on the BZA. 10 years after a fence is built with a new homeowner, maybe 2 new homeowners, who didn't quite know what they were buying into, or having a fight on the color. And it's going to the BZA to, like Solomon's baby, what are we going to do with this? During our ORC meeting, I voted based upon the lawyer's recommendation and his okay to propose this, but I do share David's concerns about it.
Can I share what Charlestown is doing? I just pulled it up today. So they have it pretty simple. To avoid creating any possible no maintenance zones, perimeter fences and walls shall be installed along and up to a property line, but within the property limits, except, however, when a fence is shared by an adjoining property, it shall be installed on the property line.
Okay, well, it actually sounds like this is in line. And I share the concerns too, that how is this going to be tracked? How is it going to convey? However, it sounds like it's not saying you must put it on the line, just that you have the option to do so. So if 2 property owners agree to do that, they can do that. In that case, they may decide the barrier of documenting it and the rest just isn't worth it, but that it will be done if it's accomplished that way.
I can tell you, most property owners, only one person's paying for it. I'm telling you, it's not both paying for this thing.
And in that situation, practically speaking, it's more likely if they would put it 2 inches in, the other neighbor most likely wouldn't put up a fence of their own. Like, great, neighbor did it. Great.
I prefer to put mine on a property line. Mine are on property lines, and I would prefer it that way. I don't like this gap thing it can end up with.
Yeah, and I think that was the concern of the planning commission. We don't want 2 fences on each side of the property line. And there's a possibility of a gap between the fences. And this ordinance, of course, doesn't require it to be on the property line. It just allows it to be. But if it is on the property line, then there needs to be some agreement between the 2 property owners.
I also don't think it creates a new problem. Like if someone's going to do it informally and put it on the property line, then yeah, there could be a situation if there's a disagreement or later, but that would have happened later whether or not this ordinance was there. Just that at least now there's an adjudication for it in the ordinances if it happens. And hopefully that when someone goes forth and says, I want to do it on the property line, OCO would be able to point at this and say, okay, if you want to do that, these are the conditions. Do you still want to do that? So, yeah.
And the comment from our attorney when he looked at this and looked over the portion talking about joint ownership, he said that he really liked the way that was written.
Was the OCO consulted with any in either or both, or?
He
the ordinance?
did make some comments.
He had some comments as well, and those comments were already addressed in here. His concerns were that the property line needed to be surveyed. But the way this ordinance is written, this draft is written, it requires that already.
And both for this issue and just for the ordinance in general, were there items that he felt would be undue ambiguity for him, create new problems, or were those incorporated in your work?
That was the only concern that he brought up, was that the property line needed to be surveyed. And unless he had any additional.
So what can, say that again?
Did he have any additional concerns?
No, it was just basically the property line was his main issue. I've got a couple of comments, Kevin. And Kevin knows that I did a lot of research on fences and submitted an alternative ordinance. And I can tell you that with regard to at the property line, all of the fence ordinances that I looked at, and it was a bunch of them in historic areas, most of the other ones, and do with this what you want, but most of the other municipalities I looked at in small towns is that they don't allow a fence to be any closer than 12 inches from the property line on any property line that it runs adjacent to a street. So if you have a fence in the back, that's different. But if you have a fence, if you have a corner lot, you'll have two sides that face the street. Most of the municipalities, the ordinances I researched, they don't allow it any closer than 12 inches from the property line. So do with that what you want. The other thing, Kevin,
Do you know why they might want
no,
that?
I don't.
I don't know.
I honestly, I don't know what the reason for that was, but it was very explicit in those.
Probably aesthetics.
Hmm?
I would say aesthetics. The
Maybe.
aesthetics.
And speaking of aesthetics, Kevin, I don't see on Appendix A, starting on line 37, where the sentence is historically appropriate materials include wood, blah, 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 blah. Is there anywhere in here where it specifically excludes types of fences?
Yeah, the next line.
Huh?
The next line.
Chain link,
Same line.
okay, chicken wire,
It doesn't say chicken wire.
okay, rolled snow fence, stockade fence that you can't see through.
Fiberglass, that,
Says chain link fences, concrete block fences, plastic or fiberglass fences are not appropriate.
I would suggest that we consider something regarding stockade type fences. Every single fence ordinance that I reviewed on the front of the yard or on an adjacent street side of a yard, they have a certain percentage that must be visible through the fence. It's like 30% has to be visible, 40% of the fence has to be visible, an open space. You have if you go into a housing development, you see these stockade fences where you cannot see through. Every single ordinance that I read, they are not permitted in the front yards or any adjacent yard to a street. And if a homeowner chooses to use like a picket fence, there has to be a certain degree of openness. And it goes to Laurel's comment regarding aesthetics. There was no issue with putting stockade fences in backyards in the ordinances that I reviewed. I think it's something to consider, and I think we should delineate a little bit, Kevin, the types of fences not prohibited. I think you do a good job with the chain link in here, but then you've got, you got the chicken wire. If we go down the steps when we leave the council room, I believe there's rolled up snow fence that have pickets that are like that, and they're usually painted red. I mean, what's to stop somebody? And those are less than 4 feet of putting that up in their yard.
Those specifically are covered because they're plastic or fiberglass, which are not allowed.
Yeah, they do say historically appropriate materials include wood, brick, iron, stone, concrete, and planting.
But agreed that some of the specific, like, you know, a barbed wire fence would still fit that definition.
And I did send you guys, this is just a minor thing, but I did send you what's called a double loop woven wire mesh fence. These were popular in the early 1900s, that's that fence, popular in the early 1900s through the late 40s. Then chain link took it over.
Right.
And I don't like chain link, but the woven fences, I mean, I have a picture here. This is a Harpers Ferry resident on Fillmore Street with that fence, and it looks great, and it's open. But it's not, don't think it's a chain link fence. Definition is, I guess, it's somewhat, most people would think that, but it's not.
And that would be allowed by this ordinance because it is metal.
Okay.
I wanted to make a comment about why at one point we looked at the ordinance that you had drafted and this one that had been circulating for years. And my issue with yours, Mayor, was mainly that there were some disagreements with the present historic guidelines that I felt if we went there, it needed a full review going back to landmarks and really going past the urgent need that I saw about the setback. That's the thing that has been so urgently needed for
Point
years.
Well, but I agree, like I think David's right, that it's close and that some of these things can be incorporated. Like this does say not more than 4 feet, but I agree that even at 4 feet, if it's a slab, you know, it's a different thing, and that could be considered. But it seems like it's very close.
Well, it says in here, you have to be open in the front of your house. Isn't that right? I can't
Yes,
which I like.
it is. It
that's
does
correct.
require openness, and I'm not seeing it right immediately, but and closed fences are allowed in the back.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Solid board fences that obstruct visibility of the premises are not appropriate for use in front yards, you know, and must be avoided.
If anybody else has any comments, just get them to Kevin. And this is a giant step forward for us.
Yeah.
I think it's
much
I think it's
needed,
true.
And it's really going to help Kevin Hamilton out on him.
The thing that would help me is some guidance from the council. If you all share my concern, if you think this idea of the fence on the property line with joint ownership is not the way to go, you know, I at one point proposed a revision that I think kind of simply got to it by, you know, up to but not on the property line or within 2 inches. And it avoids this whole issue. We can deal with that, but I think we need to make a decision. What are we going to do? Are we going to go with this that has been reviewed by the mayor, by the lawyer, and possibly adds complication in the future? Or do we go with
Well, here's my thing is the storage of the records. Do we file things? We probably file things by people's name here in this community, but do we do it by house address?
Lot property.
I mean, we want to know when we could pull up my house, 900 Fillmore Street. Okay, he got 2 permits. He got the fence thing. DCA did a review. I mean, that should all be in some sort of either electronic file or a paper file, so that we can go back 20 years from now. We can go back and look at that house. We should have because Landmarks has talked about this. We don't think we have records of everything that was approved by the town. And there may be things that have been done to these properties that there's no record, and that may mean that they did it on their own without any approval whatsoever.
And I think that's what David's big concern was, that we ain't there
We
yet.
aren't there yet.
Or not. Although, again, if it's something where it's saying you may do it, what's the compelling interest to be able to do it on the property line versus within 2 inches? Like, is there a reason that if we said you can't build on the property line, that there would be an issue with not allowing that?
You know, I can't think of an issue. To me, it's just, I doubt very much it would come up that there's gonna be a double fence. Because if my neighbor builds a fence 2 inches on his side, I am probably not building the fence myself.
Yeah, but,
Right?
but if you want to put a 6-foot fence and they put a 3-foot fence in, you're gonna put a 6. I have to have 6s because of deer in the garden. So I'll put up a second fence, I'll tell you that.
So that should happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are some double fences here in Harpers Ferry. One of them I know was put up on the spike.
Okay, so, I mean, Kevin, we can go for a first reading if you want, or we can wait for the special and anybody else has any comments. You know, let's not forget that, you know, we can put this and approve this, and then we can always amend it, you know, 6 months from now or whatever, if we need to change anything or we're finding another problem has cropped up, so. You know,
I think that we hate to approve an ordinance that we feel is insufficient or flawed, but at the same time, the BZA for a long time has been requesting an ordinance addressing fences so that they don't have to consider everything as a variance all the time. It becomes cumbersome and costly and timely and so forth.
What's your recommendation?
I really don't know what's going to be best, but I know that this is, you know, a lot of people on all sides that are really wanting some kind of ordinance in place, even if we have to, you know, perfect it a little bit more later on.
I think it's reasonable.
So you want to go for a first reading tonight?
Even without the list of the temporary fences?
There's also the ambiguity about the construction fence.
How many construction fences are out there?
We do have the meeting next week.
Not that many.
It's coming.
That would be my suggestion, if we can wait until next week, and Kevin will be able to, between maybe now and then, digest the comments that we have from David and the rest of us around this table. We may be in a better position 7 days from now or whatever. There may be just a little bit too much here for us to try to deal with this tonight. That's my sense.
And in terms of guidance, I kind of feel like on the line or not on the line, it's going to be one set of problems or another. That either way, there will be complications, and I don't know. Y'all have looked it over much more than we have.
All right, so we're gonna.
I think we need to put it off. I'm not sure that we're gonna get that done in the next week. Coming from an ORC member, but I think by March is realistic. First reading.
Are you good, Ken?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, is there anybody from planning? Oh.
Right.
That's right. No, I don't.
And a very brief report. Is buried. At its January meeting, the planning commission had elections. That was the only significant business. I am the new chair. Mr. Jenkins here is the new vice chair. And Paul Mayhew is the secretary. And we will be meeting in a week from tomorrow, regular date. And after some consultation with the mayor, I have started investigating outside support for a comprehensive plan, and have so far talked to staff in Martinsburg, have a call out to the county planning office. Haven't been able to make connections there yet. And we're going to do some more discussion on that next week. And the other thing that came up from Mr. Sayers' review of the fence ordinance is his belief that that site plan should be going to the planning commission rather than the BZA, and we need to do some investigation on that. That is not how our ordinances presently read. And my understanding is that those ordinances were created at the advice of Mark Sad. So need to do some study, maybe some joint meetings with BZA. So that's where we are right now.
Any questions for Chris? Thanks, Chris. Landmarks? Here.
Guy, camera, there.
Okay, the second one.
Guy, camera.
Yeah, you're on, you'll have to unmute.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, hi, everyone.
Hi, guy. Hi, guy.
I can keep it short. I did send everybody here a link to a map that I've been working on for past couple months of all the properties listed within the Harpers Ferry Historic District. I've entered those into a Google Maps layer so that to facilitate understanding of Harpers Ferry properties, styles. So whenever you get a chance, I would say please take a look at that, check it out. You might learn something new about the styles that are around town. And the whole goal here is to facilitate appropriate preservation and hopefully restoration of character-defining features. And I'm planning to present this at our next landmarks meeting, and we're going to brainstorm some ways maybe to use this to maximize the effectiveness of it. So that was the big thing I wanted to share with everyone tonight.
It's really cool, guy.
All right. Any questions for Guy? Guy, thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guy.
All right. Bye.
All right, Pat, you're on, you'll have to unmute.
Okay, there you go.
We can hear you.
Good evening, everybody, and I will be brief as well. I'm on for Parks and Rec, and per Article 14008, we are to give an annual report to the mayor, the council, and the recorder. Our commission consists of 3 members who are all residents in Harpers Ferry, and we have 1 town council liaison, which is Jim Justice. The December 2021 year-end bank statement.
The governor? Jim Justice?
Did I say governor?
Yeah, you said Jim Justice.
Oh, I'm
Jim
sorry.
Jenkins.
I meant Jim Jenkins. Thank you for that correction.
I want to correct that in the public.
Do it for baby dog.
Definition of somebody.
Whoa, you got
There you go,
promoted.
Jim. I just elevated you, I guess.
He thinks very highly of you.
Maybe a lot larger.
I do. The December 2021 year-end bank statement shows that the Parks and Recs has a balance of $1,668.42 in the checking account. We haven't had any movement on that because unfortunately, due to COVID, we haven't been able to do the types of events that did generate some additional income for us. In 2021, due to COVID, again, we were pretty much shut down as the year prior. So the 7 annual events that were scheduled for 2021 didn't really happen. We did, however, hold Art in the Park and Trick or Treating in October, and we did the annual lighting of the Christmas tree in December, as all 3 of those events were held outside. We did have an opportunity, however, this year for 3 new opportunities that came across my desk. Parks and Rec worked with the Women's Club for the first time to coordinate and host the 4th of July celebration at the gazebo. There was a total out-of-pocket expense from Parks and Rec. Let's turn my page here. for $117.70 is all we had to spend to make that a very exciting and well-attended event. In September, we had the opportunity to work with a group called Beta Brooklyn. And that was an event where Parks and Rec hosted a group of firefighter bicyclists who were riding across the country from Santa Clara, California to Brooklyn, New York. And their goal was to arrive in New York for the 20th anniversary of 9/11. What they were doing is they're riding across the country and they were selecting different towns that they wanted to stop in. We were selected. We assisted them with hotel accommodations. We provided a dinner for them at the Friendship Fire Hall. And then Parks and Rec provided breakfast bags to go for the next morning. It was a truly rewarding experience. Our dinner was donated by Michael, who ran Old Man's Barbecue on Potomac Street. And so therefore, the total expenditures out of our pocket just for the breakfast and a few paper goods was only $214.08. It was a very, very rewarding opportunity to spend time in Storm dropped by and was there when the guys arrived. So it was a lot of fun.
He's there for breakfast.
No, he didn't stay for breakfast. Nobody stayed for breakfast. It was to go. And then in December, we hosted our first Build a Birdhouse workshop, which was hosted by Mr. Jim Jenkins. And this was a free event that we opened to pre-registration, so we would kind of figure out how many kids we were going to have. And we did have 5. It was a very successful event. My hat is off to Mr. Jenkins, who is a fabulous teacher. He captivated those kids' attention. I thought, how are we going to deal with a 3-year-old? And this kid was amazing because of Jim. So thank you, Jim. We are planning to do additional workshops. We're hoping in the spring. And our only out of pocket there was only $15.90. So we got a big bang for our buck in 2021. We're looking forward to announcing and launching some new ideas in 2022. And we're working on getting our budget request into Budget and Finance next week. So thank you for your support.
Any questions?
No, thank you for
Patty.
doing for awesome stuff for the town.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Trail and Town Alliance, who's got this?
Yeah, I just wanted to update everyone on what's been going on the Paper Street trail, particularly the Ridge Street connector that we've talked about. I met last week with Parks and Rec on the possibility, shared the idea of making the trails a town park, and which would put the Parks and Rec as the guiding developer of the trails. Trail in Town would serve as an unpaid contractor, with the MOU that we're proposing being the contract. So we're still talking and hashing through ideas on that. The MOU just got back, I guess, today from the town lawyer, and he made a couple of comments. So hopefully we'll be able to review that and approve it next month. A couple of questions that we have to deal with, and will be signage, who pays for the signage. There will be some minimal construction costs, mainly I would guess mulch and possibly a little bit of wood. And then there's going to have to be a decision made whether we need to do a survey to guide, and that would be a fairly major expense. So we'll have some more discussion on that. And Trail in Town, I've submitted the paperwork for Jacob to estimate some of the basic costs to get started And he'll be submitting that to Budget and Finance next week. And also wanted to mention that if you want to see the type of trail that we're talking about, I would refer everyone to Bolivar Nature Park, which particularly the Yellow Trail, Jacob Stetson Trail in Town, pretty much developed from scratch. The other trails are older, and we've been doing some maintenance on those. But take a walk over that lovely park over behind the Quality Inn, and you'll see kind of what we're talking about. And Trail in Town is still awaiting for the MOU to get back from WVDNR for the stretch over by Old Furnace Road. But to let you all know, we are going to have a cleanup, a litter cleanup over in that area. Some of the property is in Harpers Ferry and some of it's in county land. We're going to have a cleanup on Saturday, February 26th at 2 p.m. So if anyone's interested in taking part of that, won't be very long, and it should be fun.
We're gonna meet, Chris.
I'm sorry?
We're gonna meet.
We're going to meet at the little parking lot that is just across Old Furnace Road from Cedar Hill Cemetery on that north end. Great. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. We have an opening on the Bolivar Harpers Ferry Library. I think we've had this opening for a while now. And Ms. Karen Sagisi, I'm sorry, has graciously agreed to serve on this very important body. I'm a big user of the library, as I imagine most of you around the table are, and I appreciate everything that they do there. And so I appreciate Karen, her willingness to step forward and serve on this important committee. I'm assuming that this is an appointment from the town council. Kevin, do I proceed like we do with other nominations? Yes. Okay.
I nominate Karen Sagisi to serve on the Bolivar Harpers Ferry Library Board effective immediately, with the last day of her term being June 30, 2026.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? Hearing none. Kevin, would you call the roll?
Yes. Storm Stanzo.
Aye.
Susan Hedgecock.
Aye.
Jim Jenkins.
Aye.
Chris Cuddy.
Aye.
Rob Durden.
Aye.
Aye.
Could I mention that I really want to thank Karen for stepping up to that. I had recently been talking with the chair of the library board, Betsy Self, and we had been brainstorming over Harpers Ferry residents to serve. But when I came back to her with Karen's resume, she was excited about it and really pleased.
Yeah, she's clearly very passionate about libraries and their importance. I certainly feel that way, and that she'll be a real asset to the town and to the library.
Great. Okay, any unfinished business? Okay, new business, discussion action on employee salary adjustment. This may require executive session. I am recommending that under authorization through West Virginia Code 69A-4, that we go into executive session to discuss matters arising from the appointment, employment, retirement, promotion, transfer, demotion, discipline, resignation, et cetera, of a public official. Chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Do I have a second to go into executive session? Got it. Second. So we have a motion from Chris. We have a second from Storm. Any discussion on the motion to go into executive session? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are now in executive session at 8:55 p.m.
Still actually working on technology.
Wait a minute.
Yes,
Okay, a little bit. Where is this? Okay, that's just.
This always scares me.
Our system is
The first thing
down.
we're gonna do is mute.
Wait for that, wait for the all clear.
in your camera.
Don't go to talk to you about it.
And then go there and turn this out back on.
Where you're from.
Oh, sure.
Got that?
Yeah.
Okay, we're back in session. It is 9:09 PM. Chair will entertain a motion.
Right now, the motion, okay. I move to increase the salary of the town's financial officer, Debbie Kelly, by $4 an hour effective in the next pay cycle.
Do I have a second on the motion? We have a second from Chris. Do I have any discussion on the motion to approve the salary increase by $4 an hour? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. Motion is approved. Any other business coming before the order? Hearing none, chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second on the motion. There's a second from Storm. Discussion on the motion to adjourn. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, raise your hand. Thank you. We are adjourned at 9:10 PM.
It's gonna be down to N.